গ্রুপে সবাইকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। আজকে আমাদের 16th মিট হতে চলেছে। আগের দিন আমরা স্বামীজির ওপর খুব সুন্দর মিট করেছি। সবাই আগের দিন আমাদের গেস্ট স্পিকার ছিল নবীনা সিকে, খুব সুন্দর বলেছে। আমরা আগামী দিনেও আমরা চেষ্টা করব বিভিন্ন গেস্ট স্পিকারদের আনার। আজকে আমাদের যে মূলত যে প্রোগ্রাম শিডিউলটি করা হয়েছে সেখানে যেহেতু 19 তারিখ, আজকে হচ্ছে 17 তারিখ, আর 19 তারিখ মানে 19th জানুয়ারি হচ্ছে স্বামী সারদানন্দজির জন্মতিথি পড়েছে। স্বামী সারদানন্দজি ছিলেন শ্রী রামকৃষ্ণ দেবের ডিরেক্ট ডিসাইপল, আর এই স্বামী সারদানন্দজিকেই বলা হয় সেন্ট পিটার অফ জিসাস ক্রাইস্ট। পিটার যিনি ছিলেন ক্রাইস্টের ডিরেক্ট ডিসাইপল, ইনি সেই সারদানন্দজি। এই সারদানন্দজির বড় রচনার মধ্যে একটি হচ্ছে শ্রী শ্রী রামকৃষ্ণ লীলা প্রসঙ্গ, যেটিকে ইংরেজিতে ট্রান্সলেট করা হয়েছে দি গ্রেট মাস্টার, ঠাকুরের সব থেকে প্রামাণ্যকর জীবনী, যেটি আজকে তার জীবন এবং শিক্ষা, তার টিচিংস থেকে আমরা একটু পড়ার চেষ্টা করব। তার সঙ্গে সঙ্গে আজকের শিডিউলটি বলি। প্রথমে ভেদিক চ্যান্টিং দিয়ে শুরু হবে, তারপর আমি যেরকম স্বামীজির লাইফ পড়ি, লাইফ অফ স্বামী বিবেকানন্দা বাই ইস্টার্ন অ্যান্ড ওয়েস্টার্ন ডিসাইপল, এবং তারপর সোহেল পড়বে বেদান্তা থেকে। আমাদের ঈশিতা আছে, শ্রী শ্রী মায়ের জীবনী পড়বে, লাইফ অফ হোলি মাদার। ময়ূখ স্বামী রঙ্গনাথানন্দজির ছোট্ট জীবনী থেকে একটু কন্টিনিউ করবে, আগে যত দূর অব্দি পড়েছে। সিদ্ধার্থ ভগবত গীতার কিছু ট্রান্সলেশন পড়বে, ইন্টারপ্রিটেশন বাই স্বামী রঙ্গনাথানন্দজি। এইভাবে সাজানো হয়েছে। আমাদের মধ্যে আশিস আজকে দেখছি আছে, আশিস আমাদের সঙ্গে থাকবে এই আশা রাখছি। আমরা আশিসের কথা আগের দিন শুনতে পারিনি, কিছু নেটওয়ার্ক প্রবলেম ছিল। we were not successful in hearing Ashish's reading, so our request will be from Ashish as well, that if he can continue reading from the quotes of Swami Vivekananda, we will also go to him. First we will recite the Vedic mantra as per our everyday schedule.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
This was the Vedic chanting. The English translation of this hymn is like this. Om, may we all be protected, may we all be nourished, may we work together with great energy, may our intellect be sharpened, may our study be effective, let there be no animosity amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace. Peace in me, peace in nature, peace in divine forces. I was reading from the life of Swami Vivekananda by his Eastern and Western disciple from the chapter Sri Ramakrishna. I'm continuing from the last part where we have left. We have seen how Totapuri, the sadhaka of the non-dual Vedanta, the Advaita Vedanta, came to Dakshineshwar, and Sri Ramakrishna got the teaching of Advaita Vedanta and achieved the highest realization of as per the Advaita Vedanta in just 3 days, which took Totapuri around 40 years to achieve that realization. So you can see we were continuing from that part. Meanwhile, strange stories that he was mad were current in his native village. His wife Saradamani Devi resolved to learn the truth for herself. So She set out and walked to Dakshineshwar. He at once admitted her right to be by his side and said, "As for me, the mother has shown me that she resides in every woman, and so I have learned to look upon every woman as mother. That is the only idea I can have about you. Yet, as I have been married to you, if you wish to draw me into the world, I am at your service." The wife, who was a pure and noble soul, at once understood and said she had no wish to bring him down to a worldly life, that all she wanted was to remain beside him, to serve him, and to learn of him. Thus did Sharadamani Devi, endowed with a real spiritual fervor, become his first disciple. Sri Ramakrishna took up the task of teaching her, covering a wide range of subjects from housekeeping to the knowledge of Brahman. This is the place where we left in the last meet. Some months after this, there arose a desire in Sri Ramakrishna's mind to perform the Shodashi Puja, or the worship of the woman. On the night of the new moon, Sri Ramakrishna worshipped Sarada Devi as the living symbol of the Divine Mother. During the ceremony, she went into samadhi, as did the master after finishing with the necessary rituals. Priest and goddess were joined in a transcendental union in the self. When the master recovered, he surrendered himself and the fruits of his lifelong sadhana, together with his rosary, with appropriate mantras at the feet of Sarada Devi. It was the consummation of his sadhana, and to him everything now became a symbol of God. Sri Ramakrishna next sought to realize the ideals of other religions and found from personal experience that they also led him to the same goal which he had already attained through Hinduism. In his association with people of various sects and in comparing their realization with his own, he arrived at the conclusion that the ultimate aim of all religion was the realization in different aspects of the one and the same truth. Among the innumerable aspects of divinity which Ramakrishna realized, the ones that stands out most prominently is that of Kali, the Divine Mother, whose emblem is death and destruction. She is the incarnation of time, which engulfs all things. She is the form of death, which destroys all. Therefore, her garlands are a necklace of skulls, and the garment about her loins is composed of several arms, while in her hand she holds a bleeding head. And yet Kali is Brahman. For For does not the idea of the eternal rise in the mind where all ideas temporal and mortal have been eliminated? Sri Ramakrishna worshipped Kali both as the mother and as Brahman, in her terrible forms as well as in the blessedness and bliss of Brahman. The personal Kali merged in his realization in the impersonal. To Sri Ramakrishna, she was also the giver of immortality. She puts down the mighty from their seats and exalts those of low degree. She fills the hungry with good things, and the rich she ends empty away. To her devotee, the mother reveals herself as the ocean of reality, whose heart is the throbbing of the infinite soul. For him, Kali held the scales of life and death, and the keys of wisdom and ignorance. At her bidding, the world begins with the whirl of creation, and at her bidding, it ends in destruction. Yet she is also ineffable peace. Sri Ramakrishna saw the mother in all things. He likewise realized her as the indwelling divinity of all souls. Through her aspects be change, time, death, and destruction. She is the everlasting, unchanging reality of Brahman. Sri Ramakrishna often became possessed by the mother. His ideas of her assumed such reality that the conscious mind gave way, and his soul shone forth as the mother herself. Lost in samadhi, his whole body stiff, his arms unconsciously took the form of Bharavaya, the vastness of nature, was translated by Sri Ramakrishna into the living reality of the mother. Of what was embodied, she became the embodiment. Of what was ensouled, she was the soul. Beyond all and as all, she dwelt incarnate as the active power of supreme reality. Brahman and Shakti are one, as Sri Ramakrishna would say, even as fire and its heat, even as milk and its whiteness. The reality when static is Brahman, when active it is Shakti, the mother. She is absolutely beyond all speech and thought. Verily, she is the Brahman of the Vedas and the Vedanta. We will go more into deep. What is this Brahman? When Sohail will start in depth from the Vedanta, Sohail will start a new chapter. We'll also look into those aspects. Why Sri Ramakrishna says the Shakti and the Brahman are the same aspect, and what are they actually? Sri Ramakrishna is talking about and practiced in his whole life. Now we'll go to Ashish. Ashish could not complete in our last meet the quotes of Swami Vivekananda. Ashish will read from the. I would ask Ashish to read from the second quote. Hopefully, Ashish is with us. Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, Arko, for previous network issue. Now I will be proceeding from the next quote. So, am I audible now? Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
you are fully audible, Ashish. Yes, you are fully audible.
Okay. Quotes of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda says, "You will be helped when you are reduced to dust, but you are a spirit. Pull yourself out of difficulties by yourself. Save yourself by yourself." He also says, "My sons, all of you be man. This is what I want. If you are even a little successful, I shall feel my life has been meaningful."
We could not hear you, Ashish. We cannot hear you, Ashish. I think there is again some network problem. We'll come back to Ashish. For
Hello.
now, hello. We could not hear you, Ashish.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, now you are audible, but I think we cannot hear you for around 1 minute or so.
Oh, okay.
Last 1 minute. I think there is serious network issues.
Yeah. There's a persistent issue here in my town. That's why. That's the
Yes.
reason.
When it is audible, it is fully clear. Again, then we cannot hear even one word from you. It's like this.
Oh.
Okay, now we'll go to Sohail. Sohail shall continue from the Vedanta. Sohail will start the new chapter, and also we will be listening very carefully the philosophy of Swami Vivekananda that he taught to the whole world, that is Vedanta, and Sohail is beautifully reading from that beautiful book and explaining as well. Sohail.
Good morning, everyone. Today I will start a new chapter from the book Vedanta, The Voice of Rhythm. I will read from the first chapter. Actually, the earlier one was the introduction part. So today, the first chapter of the book will be read by me. So, and there is an interesting history about the word Hindu that is very beautifully described in the first chapter, and I would certainly want to share this thing. Vedanta, the culmination of the Vedas. The word Hindu, by which it is a fashion nowadays to style ourselves, has lost all its meaning. For this word merely meant those who lived on the other side of the river Indus, in Sanskrit Sindhu. This name was murdered into Hindu by the ancient Persians, and all people living on the other side of the river Sindhu were called by them Hindus. Thus, this word has come down to us, and during the Mohammedan rule, we took up the words ourselves. There may not be any harm in using the word, of course, but as I have said, it has lost its significance. For you may mark that all people who live on the other side of the Indus in modern times do not follow the same religion as they did in ancient times. The word therefore covered not only Hindus proper, but Mohammedans, Christians, Jains, and other people who live in India. I therefore would not use the word Hindu. What words should we use then? The other words which alone we can use are either Vedikas, followers of the Vedas, or still better, the Vedantists, the follower of the Vedanta. Most of the great religions of the world owe allegiance to certain books which they believe are the words of God or some other supernatural beings, and which are the basis for their religion. Now, of all these books, according to the modern servants of the West, the oldest are the Vedas of Hindus. A little understanding, therefore, is necessary about the Vedas. This mass of writing called the Vedas is not the utterance of person. Its date has never been fixed, can never be fixed, and according to us, the Vedas are eternal. There is one salient point I want you to remember, that all other religions of the world claim their authority as being delivered by a personal god or a number of personal beings, angels or special messengers of God, unto certain persons, while the claim of the Hindus is that the Vedas do not owe their authority to anybody. They are themselves the authority, being eternal, the knowledge of God. They were never written, never created. They have existed throughout time. Just as a creation is infinite and eternal, without beginning and without end, so is the knowledge of God, without beginning and without any end. And this knowledge is what is meant by Vedas. Ved means to know. The mass of the knowledge called Vedanta was discovered by personages called Rishis, and a Rishi is defined as Mantra Shastra, a shear of thought, not that thought was his own. Whenever you hear that a certain passage of the Vedas came out of his mind, he was the share of the thought which already existed. It existed in the universe eternally. This sage was the discoverer. The rishis were spiritual discoverers. This mass of writing, the Vedas, is divided principally into two parts, the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda. The work portion and the knowledge portion, the ceremonial and the spiritual. The work portion consists of various sacrifices. Most of them of late have been given up not as practicable under present circumstances, and others remain to the present day in some shape or other. The main ideas of Karma Kanda, which consists of duties of man and the duties of student, of the householder, of the recluse, and the various duties of the different stations of life, are followed more or less down to the present day. But the spiritual portion of a religion is in the second part, the Jnana Kanda, or the Vedanta, the Vedanta, the end of the Vedas, the gist, the goal of the Vedas. The essence of the knowledge of the Vedas was called by the name Vedanta, which comprises of Upanishads. And all the sects of India, dualist, qualified monist, or the Shaivist, Vaishnavas, Shaktas, Shauras, Ganapatyas, each one of that dares to come within the fold of Hinduism must acknowledge the Upanishads of the Vedas. They can have their own interpretations and can interpret them in their own way, but they must obey the authority. That is why we want to use the word Vedantist instead of Hindu. All the philosophers of India who are orthodox have to acknowledge the authority of Vedanta, the Vedas without beginning or end. The Hindus have received their religion through revelation, the Vedas. They hold that the Vedas are without beginning and without end. It may sound ludicrous, but to this audience, how a book can be without beginning or end. But by the Vedas, no books are meant. They mean the accumulated treasury of spiritual laws discovered by different persons in different times. Just as a law of gravitation existed before its discovery and would exist if all humanity forgot it, so is with the laws that govern the spiritual world. The mortal, ethical, and the spiritual relations between soul and between individual spirits and the Father of all spirits, where they were before their discovery and would remain even if we forgot them. The discoverers of these laws are called rishis, and we honor them as perfected beings. I am glad to tell this audience that some of the very greatest of them were women. Here it may be said that these laws as laws may be without end, but they have had a beginning. The Vedas teach us that creation is without beginning or end. Science is said to have science is said to have proved that the sum total of cosmic energy is always the same. Then if there was a time when nothing existed, there was all this manifested energy. Some say it was in a potential form in God. In that case, God is sometimes potential and sometimes kinetic, which would make him mutable. Everything mutable is a compound, and every compound must undergo that change, which is called destruction. So God would die, which is absurd. Therefore, there never was a time when there was no creation. If I may be allowed to use a simile, creation and creator are two lines without beginning and without end, running parallel to each other. God is the ever active providence, by whose power systems after systems are being evolved out of chaos, made to run for a time, and again destroyed. This is what the Brahmin boy repeats every day. The sun and the moon, the Lord created like the suns and moons of the previous cycle. Thought on the Vedas and Upanishads. The Vedic sacrificial altar was the origin of geometry. The invocation of the devas or bright ones was the basis of worship. The idea is that the one is invoked is helped and helped. Hymns are not only words of praise but words of power, being pronounced with the right attitude of mind. Heavens are only other states of existence which added senses and heightened power. All higher bodies are subject to disintegration, as is the physical. Death comes to all forms of bodies, and in this and other lives. Devas are also mortals and can only give enjoyment. Behind all devas there is the unit being God, as behind his body there is something higher than feels and sees. The power of creation, preservation and destruction of the universe and the attributes such as omnipresence, omniscience and omnipotence make God of gods. The earth we die, in heaven we die, in the highest heaven we die. It is only when we reach God that we attain life and become immortal. The Upanishads treat of this alone. The path of Upanishad is a pure path. Many manner, customs, and local allusions cannot be understood today. Through them, however, truth becomes clear. Events and arts are all thrown off in order to come to light. The Upanishads declare, He, the Lord, has interpreted the universe, it is all His. He is the omnipresent, the one without a second, the one without a body, pure, the great poet of the universe, whose meter is the suns and the stars, is giving to each what he deserves. They are groping in utter darkness who try to reach the light by ceremonial, and they who think this nature is all are in darkness. They who wish to come out of nature through this thought are groping in still deeper darkness. Are then ceremonials bad? No, they will benefit those who are coming on. In one of the Upanishad, Katha, this question is asked by Nachiketa, a youth. Some say of a dead man, he is gone. Others, he is still living. You are Yama, death. You know the truth. To answer me. Yama replies, even the devas, many of them not know, much less men. Boy, do not ask of me this answer. But Nachiketa persists. Yama again replies, the enjoyment of the god, even this I offer you, do not insist upon your query. But Nachiketa was firm as a rock. Then the god of death said, my boy, you have declined for the third time wealth, power, long life, fame, and family. You are brave enough to ask the highest truth. I will teach you. There are two ways, one of the truth, one of the enjoyment. You have chosen the former. Now note there are conditions of imparting the truth. First, purity. A boy, a pure, unclouded soul asking the secret of the universe. Second, he must take the truth for truth's sake alone. Until the truth has come through one who has had realization from one who has perceived it himself, it cannot become fruitful. Books cannot give it, argument cannot establish it. Truth comes unto him who knows the secret of it. After you have received it, be quiet. Be not ruffled by vain argument. Come to your own realization. You can do it. You alone can do it. Neither happiness nor misery, vice or virtue, knowledge or non-knowledge is it. You must realize it. How can I describe it to you? He who cries out with his whole heart, O Lord, I want but thee. To him the Lord reveals himself. Be pure, be calm. The mind, when ruffled, cannot reflect the Lord. He whom the Vedas declare, he to reach whom we serve with prayer and sacrifice. Om is the sacred name of that indescribable one. This word is the holiest of all words. He who knows the secret of this word receives that which he desires. Take refuge in this word. Whoso takes refuge in this word, to him the way opens. Thank you. I will read up to this only. We have a long way to go. We will reach bits by bits. Thank you for listening so patiently.
Thank you, Sohail. Sohail has started Vedanta. Today, literally, we have started understanding what is the state Swamiji is talking about your own realization, and also the term Hindu and the actual meaning of the word Hindu and the word Vedantis. What is the difference? We all always, in ignorance, we say we are Hindu, even whoever are Hindu here in this a particular thing that we are Hindu, but we generally don't know what is the actual meaning of the word, and lots of debates are going on. But Swamiji's vision, Swamiji's talks, Swamiji's lectures gives us the identity, actually what the word means and how what is its universal acceptance from how it includes all religions inside in it, and how should we identify ourselves. So thank you, Sohail. In coming meets also we'll get Sohail. He will be describing more and more about Vedanta. We will now go to Siddhartha. Siddhartha will start reading from the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Ranganathananda ji. Siddhartha.
হ্যাঁ,
Siddhartha.
শোনা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে, শোনা যাচ্ছে, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
Okay, okay. Today I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita, the two fruits of these paths, Avayuda and Nisrayasha. Thus the word Avi added to Udaya is very important. It emphasizes togetherness. We have to learn how to deal with our neighbors in our villages. Let me make peace with them, and we shall together improve our villages. Improvement of elderly, fed and educated. All this, how can we achieve? Only by working together. That is the way to make our panchayats and municipalities healthy. That is the way we can bring a new healthy India to life. So this philosophy of Abhayuda is important. The West has achieved it to a large extent, and we can learn from the West how to work it our country. Three values we have to bring into our life and work hard, work efficient and cooperative work. Shankaracharya says this Vedic philosophy with its twofold ideology of Pravati and Nirvyati makes for the Avayuda of man and woman on one side and Nisrayasha on the other. That is what we speak of concerning a full welfare state today. There is nothing utopian about it. Many societies have achieved Avayuda. Today, we can also achieve it in India, provided we develop what is character, efficiency, as Jesus said. If you cannot love me, whom you have seen, how can you love God, whom you have not seen? Our people must learn that one great lesson. We have been most interested in relating ourselves to a faraway God or to an image of God in a temple than to the man in our neighborhood with whom we more often pick up a quarrel. This has to change, and the change is what brings about Abhayuda. Then comes Nisrehesa. You may achieve all the comforts of life, house, education, clean surrounding, economic strength, and varieties of pleasure. Yes, there will be no peace of mind. Life will be full of tension. Why? Because you have missed one thing. You have not known your true self, the spark of innate divinity. Your center of gravity is always outside. You miss your true dignity and have become a slave of things. Out of that comes inner tensions, crime, and declinacy, increase in society, and slowly decay sets in. This can be avoided when we added that second value to human life, namely nibriti meditation, through which one comes in touch with ever-present divine within. This is not a dogma or mere belief, but a truth realized through the science of spirituality by the sages of Upanishads, a truth to be realized by everyone and not just believed in. And the more inward you go, the more you become capable of penetrating into other human beings, establishing a human relations with them. When you go deeper to inner nature, you go beyond the teeny ego controlled by the genetic system and came in contact with the larger self, which is the self of all. Thus, these combinations of Prabhati and Nibriti of Adhayuda and Nishesha is the great teaching of the Gita. It contains a philosophy to make for total human development. That is the speciality of this great book. So Shankaracharya says, Prananam Sakset Abhayuda Nisrehesa Hetu. He did not say that it is only for Hindus or only for the people of India, but Prananam for all human beings. That is universality. By adding Nishesha to Abhayuda, the Gita prevents human beings from becoming reduced to mere machines. In modern Western civilizations, there is that tendency. Bertrand Russell says in his book, Impact of Science on Society, that if mechanizations of man and woman goes too far, the time will come when a workman will go to the factory with a flower in his hand and placing it before a huge machine will pray, "O machine, make me a good nut and bolt in your system." This is called mechanization of man. Hello.
Hmm. Thank you, Siddharth, for that beautiful reading from the book Universal Message of the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Ranganathananda ji. The practicality of the Gita in our everyday life, not just going to temple and offering flowers, but realizing the inherent divinity that is always present in within all of us, and to reflect that divinity in our everyday life. That should be the goal of ours. Thank you for reminding us also through this beautiful passage the aim of spirituality. I want to declare something from the Visiting Pilgrimages channel behalf, that we are planning, you all know that we are planning to bring various monks of the Ramakrishna order in India and around the world in our channel to give talks on Thakur Ma, Swamiji, and other aspects of spirituality. And along with that, I am requesting our group members, all of you, to come forward and give your small talks on various books that were written on Thakur Ma and Swamiji in our channel. What you can do is you can do a small video around 10 to 15 minutes where you are reading from Swami Vivekananda's literature or Sri Ramakrishna or Ma Sarada Devi or their direct disciples, and you can record that reading, that video, and you can send it to me by uploading it in Google Drive, and you can send the link and I will download it and I will edit it and I will try to give it in our channel. Just remember that if you do such video, just make sure that before that you inform me so that I will talk about the guidelines of the video. And I want more youngsters to come and join our channel and to read from the various aspects of spirituality, so that other youngsters of our nation and abroad, they get inspired and they also turn towards the Vedantic literature. So that is my request to all of you. Take out some time weekly or in monthly basis to read from a particular book of Thakur Ma and Swamiji, on weekly or monthly basis, and to provide that recording to me, and so that others can also hear, and it will be also kind of swadhyay, that you will also get to learn something, and along with that other people will also get to learn, especially young generation. Okay, now coming to the meat, we will be going to Mayukh, continuing that flow of Swami Ranganathananda ji. This practical teachings, we will be going to Mayukh. Mayukh was reading from a beautiful book. I think What Life Has Taught Me, or something like this, from this book of Swami Ranganathananda ji. In Bengali, I think he was reading. So Mayukh, if you can continue.
হ্যালো, শোনা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
তো আগের সপ্তাহে তো পড়তে পারিনি, তার আগের সপ্তাহে পড়েছিলাম কিছু, তারও মনে আগের সপ্তাহে কি স্বামী রঙ্গনাথনজি মহারাজের জীবন আমাকে যে শিক্ষা দিয়েছে, উদ্বোধন কার্যালয়, কলিকাতা থেকে প্রকাশিত। আপনারা সবাই জানেন কি কি ভয়াবহ একটা দুর্যোগের মধ্যে দিয়ে উদ্বোধন কার্যালয়ে গেছে কিছুদিন আগেই। তো হঠাৎ মনে পড়লো বলে শেয়ার করলাম। তো পড়ছি, আধুনিক ভারতের এই শক্তিশালী সৃজন প্রেরণাকে আমাদের দেশের নাগরিকদের, বিশেষ করে রাজনীতি ও প্রশাসনের সঙ্গে যুক্ত যুব সম্প্রদায়কে নিজেদের অন্তরে গ্রহণ করতে হবে। এর দ্বারাই তাদের অতিক্রম করতে হবে বর্তমানে স্থাণু অস্তিত্ব ও চাহিদাকে, যথা চাকরি, মোটা মাইনে, সুখী সংসার এবং বিবাহের সময় একটা বড়সড় পণ। ইংরেজিতে এক কথায় বলতে গেলে 3টি পি: পে, প্রসপেক্ট, প্রমোশন। আমার কোনো সন্দেহ নেই যে আগামী শতকে ভারতের এই পূর্ণ গঠন প্রক্রিয়া শুরু হবে এবং ক্রমে বিস্তার লাভ করবে। বিশ্বের উপর ভারতের অদ্বিতীয় প্রভাবের প্রকৃতি সম্বন্ধে স্বামী বিবেকানন্দ কি বলেছেন সেটা আমাদের জানতেই হবে। সে সম্বন্ধে প্রথমবার পাশ্চাত্য থেকে ফিরে কলম্বোয় স্বামীজি তার বক্তৃতায় বলেছিলেন, আমরা আমাদের ভাব প্রচারের জন্য কোথাও আগুন লাগাইনি, কখনো তরবারি ধরিনি। জগতের কাছে ভারতের উপহার কি সেটা বোঝাতে ইংরেজি ভাষায় কেবল একটা শব্দই আছে। আবার ভারতীয় সাহিত্য সমগ্র মানবতার ওপর কিরকম প্রভাব বিস্তার করে সেটা বোঝাতেও ইংরেজিতেই সেই একটাই শব্দ আছে, সেটা হলো ফ্যাসিনেশন, একটা অদ্ভুত ভালো লাগা। এইরকম ভালো লাগার ঠিক উল্টোটা হয় যখন কোনো ভাব হঠাৎ আচ্ছন্ন করে ফেলে। এখানে তা হয় না। এখানে যেটা হয় সেটা এই, নিজের অজান্তেই ধীরে ধীরে ব্যাপারটাকে ভালো লাগতে আরম্ভ করে। অনেকের কাছে প্রথম পরিচয় ভারতীয় ভাবনা, ভারতীয় আচার ব্যবহার, ভারতীয় রীতিনীতি, ভারতীয় দর্শন, ভারতীয় সাহিত্য সবকিছুকেই বিকর্ষক মনে হয়। মনে হয় যেন ওসবের থেকে দূরে থাকাই ভালো। কিন্তু এইসব মানুষ একটু ধৈর্য ধরুক, পড়াশোনা করুক, ভারতীয় ভাবনার পিছনে যেসব মহৎ নীতি ও আদর্শ আছে সেসবের সঙ্গে ঘনিষ্ঠ হোক, এবং আমি 99% নিশ্চিত যে যখন তাদের এই অদ্ভুত ভালো লাগাটা এসে যাবে, আস্তে আস্তে তারা ভারতীয় ভাবে মুগ্ধ হয়ে যাবে। যেমন ভাবে ধীরে, নীরবে, মৃদুভাবে শিশির কণা ভোরবেলায় ঝরে পড়ে সবার চক্ষুর কর্ণের অগোছারে, অথচ অসাধারণ কাজ করে যায়, ফুল ফোটায়। ঠিক তেমনি ভাবেই এই শান্ত, ধীর, স্থির, সর্বসংহা আধ্যাত্মিক জাতি সমগ্র বিশ্বের ভাবজগতে তাদের কাজ করে চলেছে, নীরবে, ধীরে। দুটি ভারত আছে, বুঝলে? একটি সনাতন ভারতবর্ষ, অমর ভারত, অপরটি বর্তমান ভারতবর্ষ, রোগী ভারতবর্ষ। ভারতীয় চিন্তার প্রতি পাশ্চাত্য প্রতিক্রিয়া সম্বন্ধে আমার ব্যক্তিগত অভিজ্ঞতা লাভ হয়েছে যখন আমি 28 বছর ধরে প্রায় 50টি রাষ্ট্রে বক্তৃতা সফর করেছি, যার অনেকটাই ছিল ভারতের সরকার আয়োজিত। বর্তমান অবস্থা সম্বন্ধে এইসব সফর থেকে আমার যে ধরনের অনুভূতি হয়েছে তার বিবরণ রয়েছে ভারতীয় বিদ্যাভবন মুম্বাই 7 থেকে প্রকাশিত দুটি সচিত্র গ্রন্থে। 1961 খ্রিস্টাব্দে ভারত সরকার ইউরোপের 17টি দেশে আমার একটা 4 মাসের বক্তৃতা সফরের আয়োজন করে, যার প্রথমে ছিল গ্রিস ও শেষে সোভিয়েত রাশিয়া। ওই সফরের মধ্যে আমি 5টা দিন হল্যান্ডের জন্য রেখেছিলাম। 1970-এ নিউ ইয়র্কের টেম্পল অফ আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং এর ব্যবস্থাপনায় আমার আমেরিকা সফর পথে জেনিভাতে একটা হোটেলে রয়েছি। তখন সেখানে আমার সঙ্গে এসে দেখা করলেন ডক্টর রাম প্ল্যাডরামান নামে হল্যান্ডের এক ভদ্রলোক, সঙ্গে তার বন্ধুরা। এই ভদ্রলোক একজন বড় ভারত প্রেমিক। আগে ভারতে আমার সঙ্গে এর দেখা হয়েছিল। ওরা আমাকে অনুরোধ করে জানালেন একটা বক্তৃতা সফরে হল্যান্ড যেতে এবং ওদের কাছে যোগ সম্বন্ধে কিছু বলতে। ওরা নাকি হল্যান্ডে এর মধ্যেই একটা যোগ সমিতি গড়ে তুলেছেন। ডাচ ভাষায় তার নাম স্টিচিং ইয়োগা নেদারল্যান্ডস। আমি বললাম হ্যাঁ যাব, কিন্তু এবছর নয়, পরের বছর, অর্থাৎ নেক্সট ইয়ারে। আমি আরো বললাম আপনাদের যে কাজকর্ম অর্থাৎ শারীরিক ব্যায়ামরূপ যোগ, সে বিষয়ে আমি কিছু বলবো না। আমি যোগ এর আধ্যাত্মিক ও দার্শনিক দিক অর্থাৎ বেদান্ত সম্বন্ধে বলবো। তারা বললেন আমরা ঠিক ওটাই চাই। তারা চলে গেলেন, আমি আমেরিকা রওনা হলাম। সেই কথা মতো বিমান ভাড়া পাঠিয়ে ওরা দিলেন। হল্যান্ডে পৌঁছে 2 সপ্তাহে আমি বিভিন্ন শহরে বক্তৃতা দিলাম। আমস্টারডামে ইউনিভার্সিটিতেও বললাম। তৃতীয় ও শেষ সপ্তাহে ডক্টর আমাকে তার বন্ধুরা মিলে আমাকে একটা গ্রামে আন্দাজ 60 জনের বাসযোগ্য এক হোটেলে একটা বেদান্ত শিবির এর আয়োজন করলেন। গোটা হোটেলেই শিবিরের জন্য নিয়ে নেওয়া হয়েছিল। জায়গাটি হল্যান্ডে পূর্বে আনোরহম শহরের কাছাকাছি। ডাচ ভাষায় উস্টার মানে পূর্ব, বিক মানে নদী, অর্থাৎ জার্মানির পশ্চিমে অবস্থিত রাইন নদী। উপস্থিত প্রায় 60 জন শ্রোতার মধ্যেই ছিলেন বয়স্ক নারী পুরুষ, ছিল কম বয়সী ছেলেমেয়েরাও, ছিলেন হল্যান্ডের বিভিন্ন কর্মক্ষেত্রের মানুষজন, অধ্যাপক, ডাক্তার, যুবক যুবতী ও গৃহবধূ। আমি রোজ উপনিষদ ও গীতার ওপর বক্তৃতা দিতাম, দ্বিপ্রহরের আগে ও পরে। নিত্য পড়াশোনা করতে হতো তাদের। প্রত্যেকের সঙ্গে প্রয়োজনীয় বইপত্রও থাকতো। বক্তৃতার পর 1 ঘন্টা কিংবা আরো বেশি সময় ধরে উদ্দীপক প্রশ্নোত্তর পর্ব চলতো। সেই 1 সপ্তাহ ধরে তারা এবং আমিও যে কি আনন্দ পেয়েছিলাম তার বর্ণনার ভাষা নেই। ওই সময় সেখানে রামকৃষ্ণ, বিবেকানন্দ এবং বেদান্তে সাহিত্যে অনেক বই বিক্রি হয়ে গেল। 7ম দিন সন্ধ্যাবেলায় হলো বিদায়ী অনুষ্ঠান পর্ব। তাদের মধ্যে থেকে 2 জন আমাকে ধন্যবাদ দিতে উঠে শেষে বললেন যে অমূল্য ভাব ও দর্শন আপনি আমাদের দিলেন, তার জন্য আপনাকে ধন্যবাদ দেওয়ার ভাষা আমাদের নেই। এইভাবে প্রায় প্রত্যেক বছর 3 সপ্তাহের জন্য হল্যান্ড গিয়ে নানা জায়গায় বক্তৃতা দেওয়া এবং শেষ সপ্তাহে একটা বেদান্ত শিবির পরিচালনা করা, এরকমই চলেছিল। হল্যান্ডের ডাক্তারদের জন্য, ভক্তদের জন্য আমার দ্য মেসেজ অফ দ্য উপনিষদস গ্রন্থটি ডাচ ভাষায় অনুবাদ করেছিলেন। পরে 2য় সংস্করণ বেরিয়েছিল। তারা তাদের যোগ সমিতির নাম বদলে পরে রেখেছিলেন স্টিচিং ইয়োগা বেদান্তা নেদারল্যান্ডস। ডাচ ভাষায় বেদান্তের ওপর ওরা একটা পত্রিকাও প্রকাশ করতে আরম্ভ করে দেন। তো আপাতত আজকে এত অব্দি পড়লাম। ধন্যবাদ।
খুব সুন্দর লাগলো, ময়ূখ খুব সুন্দরভাবে আমাদের শোনাচ্ছিল কিভাবে স্বামী রঙ্গনাথানন্দজি বিভিন্ন দেশে বিদেশে এই বেদান্তের বাণী পৌঁছে দিয়েছে। খুব ভালো লাগছিল আমাদের। এবার আমরা যাব ঈশিতার কাছে। ঈশিতা লাইফ অফ মাদার সারদা দেবী একটু আমাদের পড়ে শোনাবে। খুব ছোট্ট করে রিকোয়েস্ট করব ঈশিতাকে আমাদের শ্রী শ্রী মায়ের জীবন থেকে কিছু পাতা পড়ে শোনাবার জন্য।
শোনা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
So last meet I read how mother was in a melancholic state and how she was spending her days in Vrindavan after Master passed away and left his mortal body. And gradually, we will move on to how she managed her feelings and how she continued her spiritual practices and her life after at Kamarpukur and after. So the 9 months following 1887 may be described as the dark period in the Holy Mother's life from the material point of view, although spiritually she was in an exalted mood. Now the Master was no more. The Holy Mother could not stay on in Calcutta. She was a young widow of about 33, though the sannyasi disciples of the Master and a few of the lay ones respected her. Men at large had not yet come to recognize her spiritual status. She had therefore to go through all the difficulties which a young widow in her situation was bound to face. A few days after her return to Calcutta from her pilgrimage, she had to go to the Kamarpukur to take her permanent residence there. The Master too had told her towards the close of his life, "After my time, you go to the Kamarpukur and live upon whatever you get, be it mere boiled rice and greens, spend spend your time in repeating the name of Hari." These words of his came to be literally fulfilled. She took her residence in the small cottage that had been assigned to the Master in the family campus. For her maintenance she had only some paddy, which she could process into rice and eat without any condiments. For something to eat with rice, she had herself to dig the ground and grow some greens. She had absolutely no cash even to procure some salt. Ramlal, Sri Ramakrishna's nephew, who was legally her guardian, left her in utter neglect. It is said that he even positively contributed to her sufferings. The temple authorities had set apart a monthly pension of 10 rupees to the master, which used to be paid to the mother. But Ramlal, for reasons of his own, is supposed to have interfered and got it stopped. He even effected a partition and assigning the master's cottage to her, rid himself of all responsibilities. The other members of the family, like Shivaram and Lakshmi Devi, were of no help to her, as they stayed at Calcutta with their uncle Ramlal, who was the officiating priest at Dakshineshwar. She had therefore to live alone in that hut. To add the misery that neglect and loneliness caused, she became the butt of criticism of the village diehards who vilified her as a merry widow because she put on a red bordered cloth with customs strictly prohibited for widows. In the midst of these depressing influences, there were two factors that sustained her. One was the sympathy and support she got from Prasannami, an aged lady of the Laha family, Prasannamai, um, an aged lady of the Laha family, and a friend of Sri Ramakrishna when he was the boy Gadadhar of Kamarpukur. The other was the vision of the great master which she got now and then in difficult situations and the mood of spiritual exaltation in which she lived. So I'll stop here because there's a long part after it. So thank you so much everyone for listening, and thanks to Orkoda for creating another beautiful channel for us, and the opportunity he just spoke about us, that he'll be providing us the huge opportunity to speak there and come there and talk about the divine God and personalities. So it's a huge honor to be here, and thanks to Orkoda for all this. So I also request all of you and that please take time and do help him for this great cause. And I'm always here if you need anything. So thank you. Let's move on to him.
Thank you, Ishita, for such a beautiful talk on Holy Mother and her life, beautiful aspects of Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna's advice to Holy Mother, and the way you are coordinating our meet for around 3.5 months, the way you are giving us the background pictures in whichever topic we are discussing, we are reading, that makes our meet more and more interesting as days are going by. Now, as I promised that on 19th of January this year, Swami Saradanandaji's birthday will be celebrated in Ramakrishna Mutt in various centers. So we will be celebrating today in small Swami Saradanandaji, who was the direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna Deva. His life and teachings we will read, and that will be a kind of celebration for all of us, what we call Smarana Marana. Saradananda. And I am reading from a beautiful website that is called a buddhistlibrary.com. What makes this website special is that it shows that it is a initiative by Buddhist organization, and they are keeping the record and the literature of Hindu literature or the Vedantic literature of other religions as well. This is what Sri Ramakrishna always preached, interactive and learning from other religions aspects. Okay. Swami Saradananda. Swami Saradananda Sharat Chandra Chakraborty first came to Dakshineshwar in October 1883 when he was 18 years old. Sharat's father owned a pharmacy and therefore wanted his son to become a doctor. Sharat was willing to do this, especially when Naren approved this plan and he entered the Calcutta Medical College. But when Ramakrishna became fatally ill, Sharat at once abandoned his medical studies in order to nurse his master. He never returned to them, for he became a monk. Throughout the rest of his life, however, he showed a vocation for nursing the sick. This he did fearlessly, even in case of most infectious diseases. Sharat was noted for his courage and his imperturbable calm, the calm of the true yogi, which he displayed in the midst of various dangers. On one occasion, when he was traveling by carriage in the mountains of Kashmir, the horse took fright and bolted down steep slope. It was only saved from disaster because the carriage was stopped by a tree. Saradananda got out just a moment before the horse was killed by a great rock which fell from above. When he was asked later how he felt at the time of the accident, he said that his mind had remained detached throughout, observing what took place with the objective interest. On another occasion, Saradananda was coming up the Ganges by boat with one of the devotees when a violent windstorm arose. The boat seemed likely to sink, but the Swami never stopped puffing away at his hookah. His aplomb irritated the nervous devotee so much that he finally seized the pipe and threw it into the water. In 1893, Vivekananda went for the first time to the United States and spent more than 3 years there and in Europe lecturing. In 1896, he wrote asking Saradananda to come to the West and carry on his work. The two met in London, where Saradananda had been giving some lectures. Vivekananda left for India and Saradananda sailed for New York, where he remained as the head of the Vedanta Society until his return in India in 1898. He later became the first secretary of the Ramakrishna Mutton Mission and held this office until his death in 1927. Among Saradananda's many duties was the direction of a magazine called Udbodhan, Awakening, which has been founded by Vivekananda. In 1908, he decided to build a house which would serve as an office for the magazine and a home for the Holy Mother. It was to pay off the debts incurred in building of this house that Saradananda began to write his articles, which formed his Ramakrishna, the great master, which I told just at the beginning of the meet, called in Bengali Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga. It was typical of him that he demanded no special privacy for himself, which he engaged in this enormous task, sitting cross-legged at a low desk in a tiny room with the chatter of visitors all around him. He worked away with perfect concentration, breaking off whenever necessary to attain some administrative detail. That were few of the parts from this life, and now I read from the teachings of few of the teachings of Saradananda ji. Through selfless work, the mind gets purified, and when the mind becomes pure, there arise knowledge and devotion in it. Whatever work stands in the way of God realization and increases discontent is bad work. You should wholly discard it. The Ramakrishna Mission does not like to express any opinion, good or bad, about political discussion, for the Master did not instruct us to do anything of that kind. And Swamiji asks the mission to keep itself aloof from such effort. That is why the mission has been all along engaging itself in spirituality and service to humanity. Nowadays, there are so many religious societies, but people lose all interest in them after a few days. What is the reason for this? The reason is our words are not in accord with our thoughts. The first step in religion is to be sincere to the core. That were the great teachings of Swami Saradananda ji. We come with the life and teachings of Saradananda ji at the end of our meet. In the announcement, another announcement that in the next meet will be off. Next Sunday, there will be no meet. Maybe after that Sunday, we'll again continue with the meet. To end with the Shanti Mantra, today's meet, thank you to all of you who have been present over here. Sayan, Ashish, Sohail, Ishita, Mayukh, my thanks to all of you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.